Hi, everyone. As Julius already introduced, I'm partner engineer. My name is Bei. I'm partner engineer at Meta, formerly known as Facebook. And today I'm going to talk about software developer aspiration, Usam Boat, or MD House. You must be wondering why this title and what this is about, right? uh don't get me wrong, like I it will be very you will be expecting that I'm talking about famous, very talented software engineers like uh Turing or Ada Lovelace as aspiration. But why about Usain Bolt, who is one of the fast runners, and Empty House, which is a fictional doctor, right? So let me guide you through the slides why I'm talking about this. I want to talk to you about ordinary developer life as me and as most of you in the audience. I didn't know before I did this presentation, but it seems like we have 26.9 millions of people that are software developers. So I want to talk a bit about my experience as a software developer and explain along the way why comparison between athletes and doctors. Okay, so a little bit about me. I was born in China, in Shanghai, and I moved to Brazil when I was 13 years old. And at the age of 18, as everybody does, we need to choose our career, uh, choose our majors at college, right? So my choice was between medical school or computer engineer. Uh, I want to be a doctor because it was the most difficult uh, intro exam that it could exist at an intro exam for college in Brazil, which is called vestibular, and I simply love I love genetics, so I want to study that. And then I learned that to study genetics I need to do 6 years of medical school, and plus I was so afraid of blood and medical schools are very expensive, so my parents probably would not afford to it, although in Brazil the best public schools are free. But because of the fear of blood, I decided to choose computer engineering. And they are totally different domains, but there's something very common between them that it's like I will talk about them later. But I always want something new. I always want to learn something that changes a lot. So, and both of them they are. So I just choose to be a computer engineer. Although I didn't never program before, I just went to the the college without knowing, without having any coding experience before that. Okay, so uh, after I choose to to be a computer engineer, and my thought about this career was, we would not like this career is like athlete's career. It doesn't have. I thought we didn't have long career lifespan. Probably until 30s. That's the idea that I had. And then I just need to do something else or become a manager, or I didn't know. So my plan was like, okay, I will get just work until 30s and then save as much as money as I could, and just go to do another thing. But as you can see, 20 years after, I'm here still as a as a software developer. Uh, and I'm really proud of it, and I'm really happy with that choice. Uh, but you know, there is the reason that I stayed so long time. It actually has to do with one choice that I did, which is next slide. Oh, this is the about the athlete's career lifespan, which is usually varies, as you can see, like 5 years, 3 years. And I did one choice in my career life. It was to choose to move to US, and specifically in the Silicon Valley. So when I was working at Motorola, I was really lucky to work with Motorola office in Sunnyvale, who which has one of the best engineers that I worked with. Uh, they later moved to Google or other big companies, and we were developing uh, a Java Linux platform for mobile, which is really interesting. So when I work with them uh, in Sunnyvale, I did several trips to US, and I learned so much interesting things technically, and I decided that I my I would want to move to Silicon Valley, and that was actually one of the best choices in my life, uh, because in Silicon Valley or any place in US, I think that's where a software developer get a chance to have longer life, longer career life, because as you can see in this slide, which I was actually surprised as well, is 46% of the software developers are actually over 40 years age. Uh, I think that's probably something that only happens in US, because when I was working in Brazil, as most of you probably know, like if you are working in other countries other than US, which is not the headquarter of the tech companies, the project that we work usually like peripheral and less challenging in terms of less technical challenging projects. So when you move to but when US, you get to work on the most interesting and challenging uh, challenging works. So I think the reason that my one of the reason that my career was longer than I expected is because I moved to US and work with in the Silicon Valley. Um, okay, so that's all about how how to make a long life work as a software developer. And now I want to talk you about some similarities that I see between a software developer and a doctor, right? As I said previously, I always love to learn new technologies, and I think doctors and software developer, they are the same. We always need to learn new stuff, and everything is changing, so we need to get updated, right? And one of the thing that we need to do to update ourselves is go to conferences. Actually, Julius, who invited me to this talk, we met at a CAST summit in 2019, and then uh, we we talked at Google I/O afterwards, and we get to know each other. So one recommendation from me to you is go to the conferences, meet new people. You will learn so much. You will have people to share your experiences and learn experience from others. And also debugging and diagnostics. This is interesting. Every time that I watch MD House episode, he just do so many different exams, and every time the patient has some reaction, right? And based on this weird reactions, he find out the root cause of the problem. When I see those episodes, I remind myself like, oh, this is exactly when I'm debugging a problem. Uh, but in my case, I think it's so fortunate that I don't kill my patient. I don't get into a danger to kill any patient, or maybe just kill the software. Yeah, like with the infinite loop or stack overflow. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities, and we have on calls, right? And as doctors, and we have burnouts. A lot of people that I've been seeing, young, new, fresh grad, has worked so few years, and they got burnouts. I actually myself had almost had a burnout, but I got sick, so I realized that my body was actually firing an alarm, telling me what I should not do. So let's say my body was wiser than my brain. um, and unfortunately, I didn't get burnout. Well, and the burnout terms actually was not even popularized in my time. So, but now it is pretty much. Um, so this is a question that a lot of people ask about, right? How to avoid burnout. Uh, and I will say there are 4 points that you might want to look into. The first one is prioritization. How do you prioritize your work, your projects? How do you prioritize the energy that you are investing in your work? I would like to do analogy as a financial investment, right? So your energy is like the money that you want to invest, do certain investments. So choose very wisely. Choose those that gives you more return of investment, right? Choose those, and also diversify your investment. So besides, like prioritize what will give you the most impact, the most outcome of it, you should also diversify in terms of short-term investment and long-term investment. So there are projects that give you short gains, and there are projects that give you long-term gains. You should always mix and match. Like the same advice for investment, like don't put all your eggs in one basket, something like that. So uh, every half or every year, depends the company that you work, you do the planning, right? You do the planning with your product manager, with your manager, and you choose what's the best, how do you gonna to break down the work. So for the work break, there are very large projects, and I always try to do is always break those big projects into smaller ones. So you have smaller milestones, and you self feel uh, that you are achieving each step. So you break it into phases as well, so you can track it better, and you can feel that you accomplish something in a shorter period. Um, Besides than that, so the second point, so that's prioritization, right? The second point that people always tell is say no, right? Say no to some some tasks that you don't want to do, or you know that it will not give you a return of investment enough. But I would say don't say no. You can say no without saying no. Saying no directly make a lot of people put a lot of people in the defensive position, right? You say no. No is a very strong word. So what you can say is you show them uh, your priority list, like the project that you're working on, and you ask them, how they can, how do they see in this priorities, what's the the position of the priorities that they will put. And if it's your product manager, your manager, you just show them the list and say, okay, if you think this is really important, then we will put this in the proper position, but something need to go out, right? So think of this about like a, a bucket, right? Your capacity is a fixed size bucket. So if something goes in, something needs to go out. Otherwise, your bucket will overflow. So just show them the person, and ask them to work with you, right? Ask them to prioritize together with you. And they sometimes probably will realize, oh, I think this one person already has enough in his bucket, and maybe we should just, instead of not now, instead of saying no for now, is like no, maybe probably not now, but we can do that in another phase, right? So you can say no in a very different ways without being very heavy, a very strong reaction to that, right? And the third point is about break and rest. Break is you can do this in your whole day, right? During the day, you can have small breaks. I actually walk uh, like 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. Now that I'm working from home, that's actually make it easier. And you can have breaks in the weekend, right? You have the weekend. And you take your PTOs, you space them out, so don't get too cluttered in one block. And then you also yeah, you really should take your PTOs and and rest, right? Sleep is the best of the rest. As a human being, we need sleep. But other than sleep, there are other things like mental rest, right? So you can just maybe pick a book, watch some video, uh, or play a game. Anything that makes you feel rested, like mentally, right? Do everything that you really like to do this break. But you need to have this in your mind, like you need those breaks, right? Otherwise your body will not be able to handle it. And the last one is, I always tell people that want to move to another job, right? They say, oh, I'm burning out this job because this job is uh so demanding, people are so demanding, and our performance evaluation is so hard. What I say to those people, I do a mentorship at Meta, and what I usually tell people is like, you are the one who decide what project you choose and what work you do. You know your best. You know what's the capacity of your bucket. So you just go and set your boundary. And it's really not about to move to another company. It's about you. You need to change yourself, right? You need to set your boundaries. Changing company will not solve the problem if you didn't change yourself. So that's my basic that's my advices for how to avoid burnout. And it's really I think everybody once in a life of a developer have faced this, and I hope that those advices can help you. Okay, so we talked about how to have a longer life of software developer, right? First, we need to choose where to work, and what to work, and how to not burn out. And then now I want to talk about how to have a happy and fulfilled software developer life. This is funny. I was sharing this with my coworkers, and they were like, "How can be happy? Like, it's always so stressed, the software developer's life." I'm like, really? I uh I mean, I know we have a lot of things to do. It is a very demanding work, right? As it is demanding for a doctor, right? Um, but what I think is actually experience uh, can make it way easier, right? Um, like now, after 20 plus years working as developer, I realized that if I if I see some uh, code div, and I can sometimes smell just at a glance if it will cause any problem or not, if it looks better, if it looks good or not. And by experience, you know there are certain solutions will not work out and will require a lot of work. So you already kind of know by experience the big directions that you should take uh, for solutions, and you know what to avoid. And even after 20 years, I'm still thrilled uh, when my code compile or run the first time. And that happens a lot on the hackathons. And I've usually when I go to the hackathons, I'm like, oh my god, I'm not sure if it will work, right? So there's like a little bit of unknown, which make this work super exciting because you don't know if it will work or not. There's always an uncertainty, and when it works, it's amazing, right? It really makes me very happy. I mean, this is kind of enjoyment I cannot get in anywhere else, right? So, talking about how to have a happy software developed life is you need to explore what are the working areas that you want to do. It's like a specializations as a doctor, right? If you wanted to work on front end, on back end, on on the mobile, on the server, if you wanted to work with machine learning, or you know, there's a lot of areas that exist in the computer engineering, and there everything is so interesting, right? But you need to experience different areas, so you find out what's the one that you really like to. In my case, I worked so much time on mobile. Yes, I really like work on mobile because it's a physical device and you can feel it, you can see it, and it has limited resources in in space, in processing power, in network consumption, so in battery consumption. So everything that is has a limited capacity is more challenging, right? So you need to find creative solutions to make that work. Knowing yourself and your best abilities. So exactly, again, it's hard to know yourself, but you need to, right? Only knowing how you are, what things you like, and what the abilities that you have, you will have a happy life. In my case, I besides I actually loved everything at school. Uh, but there's one something I that I had as a child dream was I wanted to learn all the languages, human languages. I didn't know about the computer languages, but I would wanted to all the human languages in the world and work at UN. Well, I didn't realize exactly the same. I didn't make that a reality exactly, but working at a Facebook, working at any big company is like working at UN because you talk to very different people. They have all different. They are from different countries, and in my case specifically for the part engineer, when Facebook recruiter reached me out, I was so happy about that uh, because the job description is exactly something I want to do, but I never figure out that there is a position like that. So partner engineers basically you talk to different partners all over the world and make a bridge between the product engineers with the external partners, right? So I always love to talk with people and I always love to travel. And the traveling is in the job description of partner engineer. So I said, this is really a dream job. That's everything that I wanted to do. Again, for everyone is different, right? So you need to find really what you like and what you are good at, because they are two different things, what we really like and what you are good at. And maybe try to find a kind of job that makes you happy. And for me, this is a job that makes me happy, and I hope you can find yours. And last slide, as 3 takeaways that I want you to have for this speech is: remember, software developer career is a marathon and not a sprint. So you don't need to be as quick as Usain Bolt, right? And just go for the long run. And then choose projects wisely, as they are your financial investments. Make them, diversify them, make them choose those ones that have more impact, right? Don't burn yourself out. Know about your limits and put your limits for others to know. And the last is make your develop as interesting as MD houses, and have a long and happy career.